January 20th, 2012, the New Zealand police uses their anti-terrorism special tactics group to conduct a raid. An illegal raid of a $32 million mansion with 76 officers and 2 helicopters. Reason? A special request from the FBI. Target? Kim.com, an apparent international terrorist. The police would not only arrest Kim, but also seize 18 luxury cars, $175 million in cash, and 64 of his bank accounts. This wasn't just some random off-the-cuff raid either. New Zealand Security Bureau had been stalking Kim for weeks before the raid, but those few weeks were nothing. Rumors started flying around that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key, was in on the plan for years. Apparently, the only reason he granted Kim residency in the first place was so that he could one day raid and extradite Kim. It wasn't just New Zealand's PM that was taking heat either. US President Barack Obama had allegedly been colluding with Hollywood the entire time to orchestrate the entire plan. What did Kim do that was so vile and apprehensible? Well, he was the infamous founder of piracy site Mega.nz and later Mega.nz. During its heyday, Mega.nz had more than 150 million registered users, 50 million daily visitors, and it accounted for 4% of the entire internet's total traffic. As such, Mega.nz had lost copyright holders more than $500 million, making Kim an international fugitive wanted for copyright infringement, money laundering, racketeering, and wire fraud. Unlike the Pirate Bay's founders though, Kim wasn't running Mega.nz out of principle. He was running Mega.nz as a business, and a very lucrative one at that. He had a net worth of at least $200 million, and he wasn't gonna go down without a fight. Over the next several years, he would wage one of the most expensive court battles in New Zealand history, and come out rather victorious. He would get New Zealand to admit that they were illegally spying on him, that the raid used excessive force, and that the seizure of his property was unjust. And to this day, 11 years later, Kim.com is still a free man in New Zealand that has yet to be extradited. So here's the insane story of Mega.nz founder Kim.com, the internet legend that's classified as a terrorist. Taking a look back, the story of Kim dates back to January 21st, 1974. His real name is Kim Schmitz, and he was born to an ordinary family in Kiel, West Germany. But nothing about Kim was ordinary. In fact, he was a troublemaker from very early on as he had an interest in hacking. And when I say hacking, I don't mean Webkinz hacking. I mean Mr. Robot type hacking. In his teens, Kim claims to have hacked hundreds of US companies, including the likes of NASA, the Pentagon, and Citibank. Apparently, he would hack into their PBX systems, which were wide open doors for him. He would then turn around and sell the access codes to these systems for $200 a piece. Kim would even boast about his hacking skills on German TV. But to be honest, I don't think selling access codes to the Pentagon for only $200 is something to brag about. I mean, the real person getting robbed there is Kim, but I digress. Aside from selling these access codes, Kim would also sell encrypted phones that couldn't be tapped, likely to some pretty shady figures. But somehow, neither of these landed Kim in any trouble. Something that did land him in trouble though was yet another scheme with calling cards. Kim would buy stolen calling cards from American hackers for cheap and then sell them for full price in Hong Kong and the Caribbean. This made him a cool 61,000 euros in his teens, but it also landed him in jail in March of 1994. This would result in 11 counts of computer fraud, 10 counts of data espionage, and several other charges as well. Normally, this would land someone in jail for several months, if not over a year. But given Kim's age, the judge would go easy on him. He would give Kim a 2-year suspended sentence, which means that Kim didn't have to go to jail. But if he broke the law again within the next 2 years, he would have to serve time for the original crimes and the new crime. Kim had escaped jail time with the skin of his teeth, but his life was basically ruined. I mean, he literally had a criminal record by the time he was 20, making him virtually unhireable, or at least that would be the case for most people. Kim, however, wore his criminal record as a badge of honor. From his perspective, being wanted by the police at such a young age was simply a testament to how good his hacking skills were. In fact, he would use this reputation to open a cybersecurity consulting business called Data Protect, and one of his first clients was Lufthansa Airlines. Kim likes to claim that he dazzled Lufthansa with his hacking skills. Other sources claim that he knew an insider, but either way, Kim was soon pulling in millions, and his lifestyle would reflect this. He would of course buy supercars, mansions, yachts, and all the other regular stuff, but he also spent a bunch of money on creating an online persona. You could say that Kim was the first Instagram flexer in the world. Kim was definitely not the most humble guy out there, which made one thing clear. He was no longer the nerd hacker. He was now the rich hacker. Now that Kim had a somewhat legitimate IT business, you would think that he would play it safe and stay out of trouble, but that just wasn't Kim's style. Pretty soon, he would be caught up in a pump and dump scheme with a company called Let's Buyit.com. Let's Buyit was basically a wannabe Amazon back in the .com days. After .com funding dried up though, the company would soon be on the verge of bankruptcy. Instead of letting the company go bankrupt though, Kim would go ahead and invest 375,000 euros into the company in 2001. On top of this, he would claim that he was gonna bring on investors with 50 million euros and that they were gonna stage a turnaround. This would of course cause the stock to go wild, but the turnaround nor the 50 million ever came. The only thing that happened was Kim would walk away with a 1.5 million euro profit from the pump. This wasn't the only scheme that Kim pulled off either. He would also launch fintech companies called the Monkey AG and Monkey Bank. To be honest, I'm not really sure what these companies even did, but what we do know is that Kim would embezzle a few €100,000 from them, which made him a prime target for the police. Fearful about his freedom, Kim would flee to Thailand and stage a massive publicity stunt. He would claim that he hacked into Mr. Smallbeard's Sudanese bank account. He would also put up prize money of $10 million for any information regarding Mr. Smallbeard's capture. But this publicity stunt didn't exactly win him much support, and so he would just turn to faking his death online. Unfortunately, this too didn't work, and Kim would soon be deported back to Germany and put in jail in November of 2003. This time, he would spend 5 months in jail awaiting his trial before getting off with another slap on the wrist, yet another suspended sentence of 20 months. Kim became convinced that what was holding him back was Germany. What he needed was a change in scenery. And with that, he would move to Hong Kong in 2003 to continue his shady activities. He would open up a new business called Trendax that was apparently supposed to use AI to generate unbelievable returns of 25% per year. That was complete BS. In fact, the $250,000 that Kim did spend on the business mostly went towards design and theatrics, as opposed to creating an AI system that actually worked. Little to say, no one signed up. In fact, the company never even got permission to accept investor funds, so it was a complete failure. But while his real-life fortune was crumbling, Kim would continue keeping up his online persona. For example, he would produce a couple of bizarre animations that poked fun at Bill Gates. In a Flash animation called Kimbo Special Agent, for example, he would break into Bill Gates' house and write the words Linux on his walls. In another film called Kimbo Goes Monaco, Kim would go on vacation only to constantly catch Bill Gates trying to spy on him. This was mostly just satire at the time, but this has ended up being surprisingly accurate. But while these films got Kim some internet points, the truth was that his real life was quickly falling apart. In fact, he had stooped so low that he was going to airports just so that he could take pictures in parked airplanes. Clearly, he was desperate, and this desperateness would transform him from being a rich hacker to being a criminal hacker. In 2005, Kim would officially change his name from Kim Schmitz to Kim.com, and this marked the beginning of his piracy days. He would change the name of his IT company, Data Protect, to Mega.nz and launch a website centered around file sharing. Honestly, he was pretty early to the whole file sharing thing, so he could have easily created a legitimate file sharing platform like Dropbox, which was created 2 years after Mega Upload. I mean, technically, if you ask Kim or especially any of his lawyers, they'll assure you that Mega Upload is indeed a legitimate file-sharing platform that has no intention of breaking copyright regulation, but you can take that for what you will. Whether it was intentional or not, Mega Upload would become one of the largest piracy sites in the world, only beaten out by the likes of the Pirate Bay. No one knew that it was actually Kim.com behind this company though. You see, Kim had registered the business under an alias called Kim Tim Jim Vester in Finland. So as far as the public was concerned, it was run by some random Finnish dude. But while Kim wasn't getting any of the credit or notoriety for creating Mega Upload, he was definitely getting the cash. The company was pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars, most of which ended up with Kim as he owned 68% of the business. He finally had the money that he always claimed he did, and he would use this fortune to buy his way into New Zealand. You see, by purchasing $10 million worth of New Zealand government bonds, he would get himself placed into the high investment category of immigration. And once he was in, he would purchase a $24 million mansion just outside Auckland. But the truth was that neither New Zealand nor his neighbors were happy to have him, and Kim's efforts to joke about his past with his neighbors just made him look worse. In fact, he sent letters to his neighbors with the following. First of all, let me assure you that having a criminal neighbor like me comes with benefits. Our newly opened local money laundering facility can help you with your tax fraud optimization. Our network of international insiders can provide you with valuable stock tips. Let's just say his neighbors didn't find this humor to be very funny. But while New Zealand wasn't a fan of Kim, the internet very much was. And when it was revealed that he was the one behind Mega Upload in 2011, he cemented himself as an internet legend. He would go on to expand the Mega empire by launching Mega Video, Mega Pix, Mega Live, Mega Pay, and so on and so forth. But as far as the FBI was concerned, all of this was just a mega fraud. As such, on January 5, 2012, indictments would be filed against Kim for racketeering, copyright infringement, and money laundering. And 2 weeks later, New Zealand's anti-terrorist squad would descend upon Kim's Mega mansion and shut down Mega Upload. After the raid, Kim would be thrown into prison at Mount Eden, where he spent a month before being released on bail. He didn't have much to return to though. His wife would divorce him shortly after, and Mega Upload was completely shut down. Not to mention, much of his property other than his mansion had been seized by the police. But despite the bleak situation, Kim would fight back. His first goal was to take down the New Zealand authorities, because without their help, the FBI couldn't really do much. Fortunately for Kim, this wasn't too hard, as the authorities had broken a lot of protocol due to pressure from the FBI. For one, they had been illegally spying on him for weeks. 2, they literally came in with an anti-terrorist squad. 3, they unnecessarily seized his property. And 4, they turned over this illegally seized data over to the FBI. Kim's lawyers would retaliate through all 4 of these bases and more or less humiliate the authorities for this raid. After about 5 years of this, New Zealand would back off and simply agreed to settle with Kim for an undisclosed amount. The FBI, on the other hand, was not looking to settle by any means. They were looking to extradite Kim to the US and charge him with every copyright law they could think of. But this requires going through a pretty lengthy and often dead-end extradition process, which the FBI is still dealing with to this day. Will he ever be extradited? Well, only time will tell. In the meantime though, Kim went ahead and launched yet another file-sharing platform called Mega.nz with a couple of co-founders. And to really rub it into the faces of authorities, Kim would launch the site exactly 1 year after Mega Upload was shut down. And to be honest, Mega.nz is a pirate's dream. Unlike torrents, which use a peer-to-peer network, Mega uses a server-client network, which makes it substantially harder to identify pirates. Also, everything is end-to-end encrypted, which again, just makes it even harder. Little to say, Mega was a massive success. Within the first hour of launch, they would attract 100,000 users. Within a few days, this would grow to 1 million users, and within a few years, this would grow to 35 million users. Today, Mega has over 200 million users and stores 107 billion files. Now, with all of that being said, I do want to note that Kim is no longer involved in Mega, and Mega is very much trying to move away from this association with piracy. They're more than happy to take down copyrighted material from their platform, as they truly want to be seen as a competitor to Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud, and OneDrive. But while I wish them the best of luck in this transition, the reality is that a lot of pirates still use Mega. In fact, there used to be a full-on subreddit called Mega Links with over 30,000 links. After Reddit took down the subreddit, the community just moved on to other social media platforms and even their own dedicated websites. So Mega definitely still has quite a bit of work to do, and hopefully they're able to. But in the meantime, Kim's initial presence is still very much weighing down the brand. Since leaving Mega, Kim has experimented with some outlandish things like experimenting with politics. He created a political party called the Internet Party, but this didn't really go anywhere. In fact, the party only won 499 votes in total in the 2017 election. There was also rumors that he was going to launch his own cryptocurrency, but that never came to fruition either. Nowadays, it seems like Kim has just been sitting at home gaming and enjoying the remains of his fortune, while his lawyers work to prevent extradition. And to be honest, that doesn't sound that bad at all. I should also mention that he's actually really good at gaming. In fact, he was the #1 Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 player in the entire world before the police raid. So maybe he should try his hand at streaming. But then again, maybe it's better that he just continue laying low, as at the end of the day, he is indeed the internet legend that's classified as a terrorist. Do you think Kim belongs in jail? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you'd like to see more videos about internet legends. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.